Today we are finishing all the whiskey. Or we're tasting finished whiskey.
From Finland.
No, not from Finland. Like the stuff you like. It's called finished whiskey. Nico really likes it. We're tasting it. Stay tuned.
It's the Olympic episode.
Welcome to Texas Whiskey. My name is Jimmy Hayes Nelson, a.k.a. Coach Jimmy, and I'm here with the doctor, Dr. Nico Martini.
Hello.
And to finish my story, this morning, I was getting my haircut. My barber's a big Texas whiskey fan because I've basically taken him bottles that we have tried here.
You hold him hostage every time you get a haircut, talking about the
whiskey.
last thing you learned. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I do. I learn things and then pass it along. But this morning, I was like, we're talking about finished whiskey today. And that's exactly what he said. He's like, from Finland? I was like, no, the show's still called Texas Whiskey. So,
Is there a Finnish, can you do, you're an actor, can you do a Finnish accent?
I don't even know what that would sound like.
Scandinavian in general, I guess.
Maybe we'll look that up.
All right, I don't know. What do you want to start with?
Oh, you have a plethora of things here.
Thanks.
That
means a lot.
What's the Chimney Hill? I'm just looking at a bottle and reading labels right at this point.
Can we get to this one later?
Okay, then don't give me the choice.
Because this is going to get me derailed.
Okay. What would you like to start with?
Why don't we talk about what finishing whiskey is?
And then you're going to pour it? We're going off. We're going off script here?
Yeah, you're right. All right, let's screw it. Let's go with the Lone Elm.
I love Lone Elm. Lovely people.
The Lone Elm, this is 100, it's not 100% wheat. It is their wheat whiskey. It is finished in a sherry Oloroso cask.
Ooh. That's a pretty color. It's reddish.
It is. It is a very pretty color. I think that they, if I remember correctly, they finish it for about 4 months. Okay. I think. So yeah, it's coming off at about 123 proof. So it is. Wow. So it's barrel strength.
123 proof. We are starting big today.
So yeah, what do you?
But it smells very approachable.
Because the Lone Elm, I mean, the wheat whiskey is going to be softer anyway, very approachable.
Yes.
And then you're throwing it in a sherry cask, so it's going to bring out all of like the deep dark fruit stuff.
It's
even
very
more
fruity.
So.
Yes.
What do you think? What else you got? What else are you smelling there?
Very cherry pie-ish. It's I'm trying to do my best, Nico, and think of a dessert.
Yes. What dessert did I write down? Oh, there. I see it.
What dessert did you write down?
Chocolate covered cherry.
Ah,
very much so.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we're tasting this, please explain to our audience what is finished whiskey, and it's not. What do they call whiskey from Finland? Then, is that it's Finnish whiskey?
Finnish whiskey.
This is finished whiskey.
Now you make me want to make a finished Finnish whiskey.
Oh no! Okay.
Yeah. Why not?
That's the next book in the next part. Okay, so for everyone at home, what's finished whiskey?
So when you finish whiskey, It's interesting because this has been happening for a little. It's a fairly, in the grand scheme of distilling, it's a fairly new thing.
Okay.
But it's been happening for a while. So like the Balvenie been doing it forever. That's probably the most infamous is the Balvenie Double Wood.
Okay.
The second wood is a sherry cask.
Gotcha.
So it's
where's that from?
The Balvenie, it's a Scotch.
Scotch. Yeah. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, big time badass Scotch.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
But it's even pretty recent as far as that part of the world as well.
Yeah.
This practice. Yeah. So it's not something that goes back hundreds of years or anything about finishing whiskey.
Right. Exactly. So so now basically when you finish a whiskey, you take the whiskey and then you put it in another barrel and then you take it out whenever you think that it's ready. So there aren't stipulations for how long it has to be in something to be considered finished.
Gotcha.
And so, I mean, like literally you could pour it through a port barrel and call it port finished if you really wanted to.
Okay, so let me ask this, because there are so many rules. We've talked before about like what makes bourbon a bourbon. Mm-hmm. If you call something a finished bourbon, which I'm assuming is a thing, or can you not use that word once you finish something?
Bourbon is bourbon. However, I forget what the exact category is. There is a category that is basically, it's what is written on the Stinkin' Angel's Envy bottle. And it's something along the lines of bourbon finished in blah blah blah, like whatever it is, and that's the official name of it.
Gotcha. So they don't have to call it corn whiskey or something like. They can still use the word bourbon.
They can still call it bourbon, but they have to delineate that it was finished.
Okay, so going second part of that question is then the bourbon part of that they had to follow all the bourbon guidelines,
100%,
and then they take the bourbon that's followed all the bourbon guidelines and then put it into whatever they're going to finish it in, and then have to label it that way.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. Absolutely.
Awesome.
So yeah, there's no when you finish or when you empty out a barrel, there's about just kind of in the wood. There's about 3% still there.
Of whatever was
there.
So if it was a wine barrel, if it was a
okay. There's going to be big differences. We can directly talk about this. We talked about these before. You have the
it's like they're
dawn.
Like they're
I have
sisters,
the
right?
dusk.
The dusk and the dawn. We actually got these at the same time driving down to the Texas Whiskey Festival.
Right.
Made a stop in Waco out Balcones, and so. Do you want to explain how these work together?
So this is a very easy way to explain finished whiskey. So Balcones finishes a lot. This in particular, they partnered with Hack Winery, and these are Madeira barrels. And so
Madeira is a type of wine.
Madeira is a type of fortified Spanish wine. Yes.
Fortified Spanish wine. Okay.
Yes. So it's kind of like port. It's kind of desserty. It's a little bit sweet. Yeah. So they do their single malt,
right,
and then they take it and they put it in the barrels. Okay. And so they have all of their barrels, the Madeira barrels.
Okay.
Then they dump it out, and then they put more in, and then they dump it out. And typically, what they do is they blend it all together, and it becomes one product. Well, for whatever reason, there was such a drastic difference between the first dumps and the second dumps.
As far as when it pulled off of the wood?
Yes, on these barrels that they were kind of explaining how it didn't quite get back together well enough, but they were each pretty amazing on their own, but different flavor profiles. Right. And so Jared was like, F it, man. Go. Like, let's release 2. Let's do a dusk and dawn. And
I feel like that's kind of I don't feel like I've as much as I've listened to you talk about finished whiskey, and for those that don't know, this really is basically your.
I love this.
This is my favorite. I think part of the reason is it is a bit of a cocktail in a bottle at times because of the flavors and stuff. Do you know anybody else that's ever done what they did as far as making 2 different products with the same barrel just because the second time around pulled a different flavor profile?
Not at all.
I've
never heard of this before.
So creative. Again,
it's super
things
cool.
I love about Balcones is they're very inventive and creative with what they do.
And they're willing to take a risk.
Yeah.
And so now it could have been, I mean, if it didn't go well, that could have been a marketing nightmare. And now you have 2 products that suck. And now you have to
double
deal
the things
with
on the shelves that nobody's buying.
Right, exactly. But they're very good at what they do. But that's taking a risk, and I think it's gone well. I think they're really, really happy with it. And what the thing that makes me happy about it is that it's sort of, God willing, everyone else in Texas will kind of look at that and go, okay, cool. There's flexibility here. We don't necessarily have to. If I only have 1 sherry cask and I'm trying to finish my 200 cases of whatever,
right,
and it's not doing quite what I want, just realize that there are other ways. Like, there's options.
Sure.
And so don't limit yourself to, well, it's always been done this way, so screw it. Dude, we're Texas. We don't do anything the way that it's always been done ever.
That's the cool part is that we have that flexibility of trying different things. And so now going back to the Lone Elm that we started with here, that's finished in, what was that again?
This is in Sherry Oloroso cask,
so it's a type of sherry.
Yes, Oloroso sherry. So again, fortified wine. Fortified wine is kind of there's a lot of sherry, there's a lot of port.
I guess that's where I was just about to go. Yep. Is there something that's normally a go-to finisher?
Yes.
I guess, and that makes it sound like I'm talking about like Mortal Kombat moves.
Finish
him. Yeah, finish him. So it's
a Swedish.
No, right.
There's a Swedish.
So it's mostly dessert type wines, something of the sweeter realm. So you're not finishing things in like cab barrels or. Oh, look, and we didn't have this conversation beforehand. I'm really asking these questions.
No, I have seen stuff. The most egregious one was, I don't even know who it was. It was Dickel. That's who it was.
Okay.
They decided to finish some whiskey in Tabasco barrels.
Okay.
Because, hashtag marketing and Tabasco. So they did a collaboration. I've never had it. I'm assuming it's amazing.
Right.
So
not a Texas whiskey, but that
not
seems
a
like a very
Texas
Texas thing to do.
maybe, but one thing that has kind of happened here. Okay, inherently, craft distilleries are very into the craft beer scene.
Sure.
Because a lot of them came directly from there. A lot of them, it's just part of their flavor and what they like. And so they know a lot of craft, if you're with distilleries and breweries, especially on a local level, they do a lot of interaction. So you have things like this. So this is the tricentennial edition of Ranger Creek. This is a whiskey that they're doing every year.
Ranger Creek, San Antonio, right?
San Antonio.
San Antonio.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the 300 was the 300 years of the city.
Okay.
So it was the city's tricentennial, and so this is a smoked single malt that they finished in. They finished in beer barrels. Who are they working with? They're working with Freetail. So Freetail every year does a stout called La Muerta, I believe.
Okay.
And it's for the Dia de Muertos.
Okay.
And so what Ranger Creek did was they took their smoked single malt, which is fantastic. It's called Rimfire. And they took that and then they finished it in the stout barrels. So this year's there's a 301. I don't remember what they're finishing it in, but this is kind of a thing that they're doing.
Their smoked single malt finished in a stout beer barrel.
Yes, exactly.
Very cool. Because you pulled it up,
Yeah.
and maybe it's partially because of the sticker and everything.
Oh,
I was
dude.
like, why did you bring tequila?
Right,
Because
right.
literally that color.
Yeah, it's a sugar skull. So you're gonna kind of get the
in fact,
vibe of would you like to try this? Yeah, dude.
animal's all about.
This one's fun. I'm a fan. And I love the marketing. I love the approach of it, and the 300 year anniversary of San Antonio. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool?
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's super cool. I'm a big fan. I like this.
It's
This is my hidden
huge.
one.
That's
nobody
really
has
cool.
this bottle. There's a few people in San Antonio that still have theirs, but this bottle's gone.
Yeah.
This is so fun.
While
but
it's
they're doing it every year, which is cool.
They are.
Yes, they're doing it. They did 301 this year. I think that it was finished in cider barrels. I forget. It doesn't matter.
All I know is it's 100 degrees here in Dallas today, and that's something I would sip on.
Yeah.
In really warm weather. If I was going to be outside or it's
Absolutely.
just hot or whatever, that's fantastic.
So you have beer barrels that you can finish things in. Which there's the cool thing about when breweries and distilleries collab is the back and forth.
Sure.
So
because it goes both ways, right? Because
Exactly.
they're going to finish their beer in your whiskey barrel.
So now we've taken your stout barrels and we have finished our whiskey in your stout barrels, and then we're going to give them back to you, and you're going to finish your stout in our your stout barrel that we had finished whiskey in.
It's that I know that you know that yes.
Yeah, but it totally it works.
And so that
you
first
can
going back to Balcones, that first collab with Shiner, is that what that was as well?
They took that was not a finished whiskey.
Okay.
It was they took the recipe for Shiner and made an unhopped version of Shiner and distilled it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the Shiner collab.
Yeah, I guess when I first saw the
You just
labels
kind
and
of
stuff,
assumed,
I just assumed.
Yeah, Shiner isn't aged, so
This
they don't
was-
have barrels. So
I didn't know that
now
either.
I'm pretty sure they made a beer to stick in the barrels that they were I think the back and forth started happening
Right.
a little bit there, but yeah, initially it was just the rest of the Shiner recipe.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas their relationship with St. Arnold, I believe that I forget which one it was, but the Balcones has a St. Arnold barrel finished one. I think they were taking their stout and they were finishing.
Yeah.
The stout works a lot. Because you'll finish that as breweries will finish their stout in barrels sometimes. But it's a little bit more hefty. So
Going back to the wine stuff and talking about dessert wines and just sweeter things, are there things being finished in a cab? Is it a tradition, whatever you consider a traditional wine?
that You have one.
Yes.
Yes.
This is the Ghost Hill Texas bourbon from Treaty Oak.
Mm-hmm. I forget which it is. Does it say on there?
It says wine cask finish.
Okay, just wine cask.
Single barrel. There's no back. Let's
Yeah.
look inside here. This 2-year-old Ghost Hill Texas bourbon is finished for 6 months in Treaty Oak. Yeah, Cabernet barrels.
Okay, there you go.
So here we go.
So yeah.
And this was one that we were gifted so nicely by Jamie Beal from Treaty Oak while we were in the Texas Whiskey Festival.
It's absolutely. I love that whiskey.
It is lovely.
I think I mean, you know, I'm a sucker for finished whiskey, but I think that Treaty Oak finishing their bourbon is a very, very cool thing and a very good idea, and it makes a very good product. I'm a big fan of that.
And maybe you don't know this. Was there somebody that went down this road? I always going to assume Balcones just because they're the most. I feel like they're the most adventurous. Do you know who did it first in the state? I mean, obviously it was.
Oh God, I don't know. Probably Balcones. I don't know. I do know we have.
Oh my gosh, that's good.
This
has been sitting in my cabinet, and I haven't had it in a while. And then I'm like, oh,
it's awesome.
Right, it's awesome.
We have a new entrance into the finished whiskey Texas finished whiskey category.
As far as what we're finishing it in?
No, as far as who is finishing their whiskey.
Oh.
And that would be Garrison Brothers.
Okay, funny, because they were in the back of my head, and I'm like, they're probably the one that doesn't do this.
They're the one that doesn't do that.
Right.
They literally, what day is this? This is Tuesday. On Saturday.
Was this the Guadalupe thing?
It was
just
the Guadalupe
Look at me
release.
doing my homework and
There you
looking
go.
at what's going on in the news.
Yep, the Guadalupe is port barrel finished.
Oh, okay, and it went really quickly. One of these days, I'm like, we're gonna go down. I'm gonna go down and get one of these lines.
Honestly, I don't know. I guess I'll have to save up a little bit of money to go buy a bottle. But
Right.
But yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun to like go do one of
the experience of one of these these distillery.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool. So and the Guadalupe is finished in what?
Port barrel.
Port.
Speaking of port barrel, would you like to try a port barrel finished? That's
Ranger Creek because we got that. You got that bottle when we went down last year, whatever that was, our first trip down to kind of the hill country.
So this is white port barrels. This is going to be a lot more subtle. Do you know there's white port?
No, I was just going to say, tell me what the difference is.
I didn't know either until we went to Portugal. Like I had no idea there's this thing called white port, and it's port, but it's white. It's kind of a.
Is it because of
softer,
what grapes
subtle,
they use? Is that where the color comes from? Okay.
Yeah. And so so it's going to be a lot lighter than a traditional port. Like I'm sure the Guadalupe is just big and like there's all of the deep fruit, and you can you get sort of a wine vibe out of the thing.
Right.
But yeah, the white port, it makes for kind of a light, easy drinker. It's pretty cool. That's
pretty cool. And like this one, and so many of these I feel are like distillery only places where you can find this. Because you feel like that's common as far as like, wasn't the Dusk and Dawn, I don't know, could you get the Dusk and Dawn somewhere besides there, or do we have to stop by?
They are going into distribution.
Oh, they are, okay.
I believe they're in distribution now.
Okay.
The problem with distributed finished whiskey is that it's a pain in the butt to get regular barrels, and now you're throwing a whole other layer on top of the thing.
Right.
So like Iron Root, I was there yesterday. I'm so annoyed. They're doing this Harbinger. I don't know if it's Harbinger. They're just the whiskey. They're doing a corn whiskey finished in Pinot de Charente casks.
Okay.
And
what is that? Is that
unbelievable?
a wine
it's a French wine. Yeah. Okay. It's unbelievable. And Robert's like, it's not a bottle. I can give you a little sample. And I was like, that's the one I went to my car to go find.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to pull it out and be like, hey, guess what? Here's
some secret whiskey.
And I put it in my backpack and it's at home. So
well,
I'll give you some later.
Okay. I remember when we were up there kind of taking the tour while we were doing the labeling for Grayson, I remember him pointing out a couple, because it was like a bigger barrel. Am I thinking of the right thing?
And that's where I was getting to. You saw them.
Yeah.
How many do they have? 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you take all of these barrels of whiskey.
Sure.
And you have to leave them in that thing for 4 months. I mean, you're dealing with a finite amount in general.
Sure.
So unless you're the Balvenie, which is, if they don't own their own sherry maker, I would be shocked.
Right.
Like the only reason they need sherry is to crank out all of their scotch.
Okay, so I was looking back at this treaty oak. So the finishing, so the bourbon. So again, we talked about this. Okay, it's bourbon. You were talking about Angel's Envy, right? So the way this is, it's bourbon whiskey. So it's aged at least 18 months. In this situation, it says this 2-year-old Ghost Hill bourbon. So it's a 2-year-old bourbon. This was finished for 6 months in cab barrels. And you were telling me, so there's no minimum time it has to be finished?
Finishing, yeah.
It could be finished for a week. It could be, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's some are finished for 4 months. Some of them are finished for 2 years. It just kind of depends on what you're trying to do with the whiskey.
But it does make sense that it's going to be a smaller distribution, the finished product of... Because I know this isn't... we'll use this as an example. It's not a Texas whiskey, but the fact that you brought up Angel's Envy, and I happened to drink it last night. Is that one that's more, I think, of a bigger brand that's just like all of their stuff finished?
I don't know. I think so. I think
because
so,
that was just like
know.
so. I was I stopped by Bob's last night. I live right by the original Bob's on Lemon.
Right.
There's a shout out there for you, Bob. And
it's not giving you 2 carrots, bro.
Hey, I need 2 carrots, not just 1 big carrot, right? But it was just the normal Angel's Envy, and I noticed on the bottle that it says that. So I was like, oh, okay, their base product is a finished whiskey.
I believe so. I'm pretty sure.
But I feel like that's probably actually pretty rare, right? That somebody's base product is a finished.
I mean, the Balvenie.
Okay.
They're double woods. Sure. That's their baby.
That's their.
That's the one that's not their baby. That's the one they sell the most of.
Sure.
So there's some big brands that are doing it. So
you talked about Tabasco. Are there any other kind of kitschy things besides that? So we've talked about obviously beer makes sense, wine makes sense. Are there like rum? Is there like other?
There's one. Yeah, there's absolutely rum. Okay. Absolutely rum. Rum happens all the time. Actually, agave is starting to happen. So you'll have people that'll finish it in añejo barrels and
in like a tequila barrel.
Yeah, like a tequila barrel. You've got it. The act of finishing is it leads like it gives you the ability to collaborate in really interesting ways. And so there was the Houston Bourbon Society did a collaboration with a local honey maker. And they got a Balcones barrel, and they barrel aged a bunch of honey. And then,
so it was a Balcones barrel that had been used for whiskey
for something. I don't know what it was.
They put all their honey in it.
They barrel aged the honey.
Gotcha.
Took the honey out, sold the honey, and then they had the honey barrel, literal honey barrel left that probably had, it's like. He said it was really, really, really wet. So I'm guessing there's like 10% of it still in there.
Well, and that's sticky.
Honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they turned to Jared and was like, hey, can we throw some single malt in here and finish it in the honey barrel? And he's like, absolutely.
So, of course we can.
And so they have this honey barrel, like it's finished. It's also 10% honey, but it's like, it gives you the ability to do all these things.
Sure.
So honey happens pretty frequently.
Yep.
These are Madeira casks. This is the beer. This one is kind of interesting. We can talk about this one. So real spirits out of the Hill Country,
which I feel like this bottle has made an appearance before.
Possibly. If not this one, then one of their. So they have a series called Double Barrel. And their Double Barrel series is basically they're taking their Texas Hill Country single malt, and once it is ready, they're finishing it in another barrel. So
it's finished in another whiskey barrel.
In another something barrel. So
of their own.
This one. Yeah.
Okay.
No, not necessarily. So this, do you have a glass? We're going to play a little game real quick because all of the double barrels are going to be different depending on like not all the bottles, but like each of the runs are going to be a little bit different. I've had a double barrel that was finished in an Andalusia Striker barrel, which is the smoked whiskey up the road. The smoked
Wait,
single
so
malt
Real
up the road.
Spirits
Real
finished
Spirits
their-
makes their single malt,
and then they finished it in somebody else's
in
whiskey
a striker barrel. So that was one version of the double barrel.
Sure.
And then I've had one that was finished in port casks from Grape Creek Vineyards.
Okay.
So I've seen that double barrel as well, and I don't remember which one this is. So I would
it doesn't say?
No, it doesn't say. Oh
my goodness.
So I would like you to tell me which one is this the port finished or is this the striker finished? Because they're going to taste very different. But
And I have Striker. I'm very Striker's very smoky.
I know I'm springing a test on you real
are.
quick in the middle of a show, but
I'm proud of myself because I know what Striker is.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Andalusia.
Yeah. And you know what port is. You're familiar with port. Is this port barrel?
Nope.
This is striker? Yeah!
Am I right?
All right. I don't know.
But
I'm pretty sure you're right.
I'm just excited that I was like that. I was like, yes, that's because it
awesome.
tastes like Striker. Yes.
Hell yeah. Okay.
It's so good.
Isn't that a fantastic idea and a fantastic way for people to collab?
And I love it. It goes back to this whole spirit of Texas whiskey of like, hey, we're gonna play together.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna finish my whiskey in your whiskey barrels. It's not something completely different.
Right, totally. I mean, you think about it, like if Lone Elm throws their wheat into brimstone barrels from Balcones, it's gonna have a completely different.
It's so funny.
vibe.
So I almost brought the brimstone, but that technically isn't
It's
a
not
finish.
finished.
Because I was reading on there.
But they age it in barrels,
Right.
And I promise you that those barrels are very brimstone.
But it's because those barrels have just been charred, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so the brimstone from Balcones almost tastes like. I was explaining this to my dad the other day. I was like, you remember like as a kid, and they're probably still around, but as a kid, when I would get my lunch and like we'd have like the multitude of different Lay's potato chip bags, the little minties that we get like from Sam's.
Right, of course.
The barbecue one, when you pop that open and stick your nose in there, that's what brimstone smells like to me. That it's like the barbecue, it's the barbecue whiskey.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah.
No, I totally get that.
That's awesome.
One group I wanted to bring up, Oak and Eden.
Okay.
So have you ever seen these? Do you see that?
Oh no! What's in there? What is that?
If you can see that, yeah, there you go. That is a spire.
Okay.
So their entire
it looks like a spine that's sitting inside the bottle.
So basically, there are these things that were made to finish whiskey, and
because the finishing is coming off of whatever's on that thing.
Yes.
Okay.
So it is an oak stave basically that it is a piece of wood that you put in there and it interacts with the bottle. And so with the whiskey in the bottle. And so their entire like business model is they have they have a bunch of different products, but namely like the cool part is if you go to their location, you can walk in and say, okay, I would like a rye whiskey, and I would like it finished with the stave from.
And they give you that, and you put it in your own bottle.
Well, I mean, they put it in.
I mean, but still, like,
yes.
but you're basically finishing it yourself.
But yeah, if you were like, I would assume if you were like, well, I kind of like bourbon and I kind of like rye, so can you do half bourbon, half rye, and finish it with that raw beer barrel? Or raw beer stave.
Yeah,
they have beer staves. They have oak staves. They have oak staves. They've got port staves. They've got a whole bunch of different kinds, and you can and each of them, what they say is it gives it a different flavor profile. Just kind of depending on what it is. So I did want to mention Oak and Eden.
Where are they located? We brought them up a few times.
And they are. Where are they located? A small town outside of Fort Worth.
Okay, but they're kind of local.
I think it is Bridgeport. Okay. I'm pretty sure they're in Bridgeport. But yeah, no,
I've seen that bottle.
It's a Texas company.
Yes, I've seen
This whiskey is not from Texas.
Okay.
They bought this whiskey from MGP.
Okay.
The company's from here. They don't have a distillery. They have a tasting room that you can go and you can kind of do the thing.
Gotcha.
So they don't make the whiskey.
They just bottle here.
They make the whiskey do this.
Gotcha.
Which is cool. And they're honest about it, like whatever.
No,
so like they're in the book.
The entire time we've talked about this show, it's all about transparency, right? So
absolutely.
That's awesome. Is there anything? So it makes me think.
Poorly timed.
We sipped at the same time. One of us should have filled that void. it just makes me think of like what other, because it does open up a ton of possibilities of like what are other things that you could finish things in, so it doesn't have.
I've
to
heard
be,
of tobacco. I've heard like tobacco barrels. I've heard. I'm sure. Lord knows somebody's gonna try weed. Try to stick a bunch of weed in a barrel and then finish the whiskey with the weed barrel. Like, you know,
I'm trying to think of other things that are inherently in barrels. We've talked about rum,
oil.
Oil. Well, okay, again, not a Texas whiskey, but we've talked multiple times about, or you and I have talked about the Basil Hayden that's in a rum barrel.
Yes,
right, and
that's not in a rum barrel. The Basil Hayden Caribbean cask that you're talking about with the blue label, that is not in a rum barrel.
Oh, what is that?
It has rum in it. Oh. It is a percentage of rum.
Oh, I thought it was a finished whiskey.
If you read, I know.
I have a bottle at home. I
It's
have
the
half
idea.
a bottle at home, yes.
If you read through it, you'll see that it does not say rum barrel anywhere.
Gotcha.
It says rum. And which is kind of cool, actually.
Okay, so one of the things that popped up, that especially the Andalusia one, and I think there was someone else that had been doing, you would keep talking about Texas distilleries that are starting to do brandy.
Yes.
Do you feel like that would be a finishing thing as well? Like that seems, again, something kind of sweet. It's a little desserty. Like that makes sense as well.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Jared was telling me Jared Himstead from Balcones was telling me about how they were, he's like, dude, we just bought every dessert wine barrel in the state of Texas that we possibly could.
Smart.
And, I was like, why don't you open a dessert wine thing? And he's like, we don't have time for that. I'm like, I know, but you're working with all of these people. Mm-hmm. Why don't you just pay for their dessert wine? Buy all of it so that you get all of the barrels. He's like, oh my God, I need to send an email.
Right. And then you're like, and then send me a percentage.
Like,
yes.
Do the Balvenie thing, which I don't know, but I'm assuming like they'd be dumb if they didn't.
Right.
Like, just, okay. So you make a sherry company. If you need, and what's funny is there's a lot of people that are on the side of the industry that are all about sustainability and trying to move forward and being good for the earth and yada, yada, that are so pissed about this finishing thing because no one drinks sherry. But there's all of these people that are still going through everything that it does to our environment to make sherry because they need to sell the barrels at the end. Like there's literally people that are making sherry,
right?
So
they can sell the barrel
and then dumping the sherry, and it's just like it's real bad. Like it's bad for the environment.
So we need to find something to do with all this sherry.
Yeah, no kidding. I was like,
drink it.
All right, what are we doing? Yeah, what's distilled sherry taste like?
Okay. I'm gonna before we. Because I feel like we're building to this Chimney Hill situation here.
It's not that big of a deal.
But it is because I tried to start with it.
But it will totally derail me.
Okay. This is fine. I keep thinking of things that I know that are finished. Like I see cherries that are like whiskey finished. I've seen like Jack Daniel's mustard. I've seen. Would that stuff work the other way around? Could you
try
Could you finish a whiskey in mustard or in a Bing cherry?
I don't know why you would.
I don't know.
I would absolutely think that if you were doing some sort of like the maraschino cherries, if you were doing some sort of a barrel aging of maraschino cherries and then you had that barrel, fuck yes, put whiskey in that and find out what happens. That sounds amazing.
Right.
Mustard, I'm not sold on.
Right.
But dark cherry? Yeah,
I guess I'm just trying to think of things because all the booze ones make sense. Wine, actual, cab, port, a dessert wine, rum, all these things make sense. I'm like, okay, what are the other things, the non-alcoholic things? So we talked about honey.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what else can I, like, I just want a whiskey finished in like Fletcher's corny dog batters.
I mean, I feel like there's it opens the world to creativity.
Absolutely.
Because like the first thing that comes one of the first things that comes to mind as far as like a thing that has so many different flavors is like tea. You can absolutely barrel age some tea, and then what does that barrel have? What does it do? That'd be really interesting. If you were to get like a dark black tea.
We've talked about this before because I think Balcones had some kind of Dr. Pepper situation or whatever. You've told this story before, I think. But I was like, what if things were finished in flavors, specifically Texan? Like, what are Texan flavors, right? Okay, Dr. Pepper is here. What is Fletcher's Corny Dogs? I'm trying to think of things that are like inherently Texas. Like, what could you finish in? Pecan pie. What's like?
I'm not helping you with corny dog whiskey, man. I'm sorry.
I'm willing to put my reputation on the line for corny dog whiskey because I'm just like, I feel like you sell some corny dog whiskey at the fair, like OU Texas halftime corny dog whiskey.
That's true.
That shit's going.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
The one that's super intriguing to me is I love finishes in other barrels. Like I love the Caribbean cask idea. Okay, so Basil Hayden's isn't actually, but whiskey finished in rum barrels is fantastic.
Yeah,
and there's so much interaction between the barrel and the wood, especially if it's a little wet.
Mm-hmm.
Then it makes it's a really unique flavor, and you can do really interesting things with it. And more than anything, man, is it you can mask some stuff if you need to.
Oh, really?
And so, well, I mean, it's adding another flavor. And if you have a mediocre whiskey and you leave it in there for 2 years, then it's just going to kind of taste like whiskey port, and it's going to have a different vibe entirely.
Do you feel like there are certain distilleries that choose to finish something because the batch they were working on didn't come out the way they were hoping, and so they're like, okay, to salvage this, we're going to finish it?
Oh, sure. I know that's happened.
Okay.
I don't know who they are, but I promise you somebody's been like, let's finish this. Let's see if we can finish this.
Right.
Let's go with that. There are others that are built around the concept of finishing. And so like everything that they do is going to be finished. I was like I was up at Iron Root yesterday, and they have a new project called Saint Alley that's actually an MGP product.
Okay.
So they have, so they're getting MGP. They're doing a blend of a bunch of MGPs.
So it's not their whiskey.
It's not their whiskey.
Okay.
They didn't distill it, but they're doing this blend, and then they're using their techniques on the blending, and then they're using their techniques on the finishing. And they're coming out with 3 different categories. I think one of them's port. I think one of them's Madeira, and I think one of them's Sauterne. But
really?
I could be wrong. But basically, all 3 of them are going to be finished, and so. And I tasted some yesterday. Good God. It's going to be like $60, and it's fantastic.
Awesome.
It's so good. Like, dude, it just shows how good of a blender that Jonathan actually is.
Absolutely. They're great.
It's unbelievable.
Okay, I feel like we've waited this long. I need to know about Chimney Hill and why you're going to be derailed.
Okay,
so this is the point
right.
with the show where we need to know more. Because I tried to start the show with it.
You did. Okay, so this Chimney Hill, this is my favorite whiskey out of the Rio Brazos distillery. Shout out, brother. The Rio Brazos distillery in beautiful, scenic College Station, Texas.
Oh, your favorite as a tried and true Longhorn, you love you some College Station.
It's funny. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, so I'm not gonna talk about the conversation that I had about having a distillery in College Station and where allegiances may or may not lie, but the whiskey is from there, and it is very much a Texas Aggie whiskey.
Awesome.
And I forget his name.
Chimney Hill aren't the people that are doing the popcorn whiskey.
They are.
They are.
It's
okay.
the popcorn whiskey.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what
that's not the popcorn
like.
whiskey.
No. So
but they're going to be doing one, right?
No. This is their bourbon whiskey that is finished in Sauterne casks.
And Sauterne is another dessert wine-ish type thing. Okay.
And this is fantastic. Like, I love this. The bourbon whiskey from Rio Brazos, it's okay. It's pretty good. Like, it's not bad. But this is kind of special. Like, I really like this. I gotta
stop for a second. All these finished whiskeys have the most gorgeous color to them.
Man, you stick it in a wine barrel, and it's gonna
just really amazing.
It's gonna make it look very, very cool.
Of things as well. So
here's cheers to Aggie,
to the SEC.
Okay, so just to break it straight down, I am a massive Longhorn fan. Jimmy is a massive Oklahoma fan, and
to the University of Oklahoma.
We've had some very interesting discussions this week with the new turnabouts as far as the conference goes.
Yes.
And I was telling him that, as a Texas fan, I can honestly say that I have no interest in doing this. I think it's a terrible idea. But man, it's funny to read Aggie message boards right now.
Right.
Cheers.
As an OU fan, I have nobody that I'm kicking in the crotch. I'm just along for the ride, but we'll see.
Cool?
It's lovely.
Isn't that cool?
And that's finished in you said Sauterne?
Sauterne casks.
Okay.
So yeah. Yeah, man.
That's good.
Finished
and I
whiskey.
understand. So as someone who digs cocktails, so before we ever started the show, in fact, Nico and I were at a buddy of ours, birthday party the other night. And it's probably one of the first nights I would have asked for something just straight on the rocks, because the restaurant we were at had a barrel pick from Balcones. And I was like, oh, instead of ordering the cocktail, I was like, I just want to taste that whiskey.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's been really cool to just go through this entire process and appreciating these things. And I'm still a huge cocktail fan. And so when Nico talks about finished whiskey being one of his favorites, and he's a cocktail guy. Like at the end of the day, he drinks a lot of whiskey, you know, in his Glencairn. Well,
yeah,
you know, and
it's the right way to drink it.
Thank you. You know, just for the past 20 years, it's been the right way to drink it. It really is the closest thing you can get to a cocktail in a bottle where you don't necessarily need anything else. So. Finished whiskey, boys and girls. Dude, it's been awesome.
It's so nice. There's one more thing that I wanted to bring up. There's a product called Oak Bottle that Oak Bottle. So essentially, I don't actually have a good looking bottle. These are all kind of specialty bottles. Anyway, so has a bottle. It is a tall 750 that is made out of oak. Okay. And the idea behind Oak Bottle is that you can put a little bit of port in there and let it kind of soak into the oak.
Wait, you buy the bottle and then you personally can put port into it?
This is a one bottle thing.
Yep.
So you put a little bit of whatever in there and then pull it out and then put whiskey in it. And now you can kind of finish your own.
Right.
And so it's really, I feel like it's fairly expensive.
Okay.
But if you are a whiskey nerd, you will have a lot of fun with it. I will say that when they sent me one, which was cool, and he was doing some sort of like a contest on Clubhouse, and
is it Clubhouse still a thing?
Remember Clubhouse?
I remember that week.
Yeah, it was great. It was really happening for like 3 weeks. So he was doing something on Clubhouse, and he sent there was 10 of us, and he was like, get your own spirit and then age it and then send it to me and we're going to blind taste it and do this whole thing. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I sent you a bunch of stuff and I've never seen anything, but whatever. I still have the oak bottle and it's kind of cool. So I aged Pisco.
Okay.
Because you can't age Pisco. You're not allowed. It's Peruvian brandy. It's all unaged. They don't age Pisco, then it becomes not Pisco. So I was like, well, fuck it, I'm going to age Pisco.
Right, you don't care whether or not
I don't. The government of Peru is not going to come to my house and be like,
it's no longer.
Don't
Pisco.
you dare post on Twitter about this. Don't you? And if you do, don't you dare call it Pisco. But I ate some Pisco and it absolutely works. 100%.
Nice.
Totally works. Really fun to play around with. So and the whole Oak and Eden thing, there are staves that you can buy if you're like, I want to take some Jim Beam White and throw a stave in it and turn it into Little Book, but you won't. But you can try. Right. And the idea of doing your own finishes at home is kind of becoming a thing. That's fun. If this is something you're into, check it out, man. There's lots of ways you can play around with this stuff.
Awesome. And I can't end this episode without the acknowledgement that I got my copy.
You finally got it.
I got my copy of, and if you haven't checked this out, this is Nico's newest book, Texas Whiskey. This is a gorgeous book, dude.
It's really pretty.
I'm super proud of you.
It's really pretty.
I have a copy at home of the Texas Cocktail book, which is equally as gorgeous, which is signed.
Yeah.
Aggressively by you.
Oh, did I say something about Oklahoma?
You just said something about the University of Texas very aggressively.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, same.
But I want to say congratulations.
Thanks, man.
This is a gorgeous book. I'm super proud of you. I'm excited to go home, pour a big fat pour and sit and read this. And if this is something you haven't checked out, go to texaswhiskeybook.com We're still doing some cool giveaways. You can get an autographed copy from Nico. We're going to be doing some online tastings. We're going to be doing some events here in DFW if you're in the area. So just check out TexasWhiskeyBook.com. We're doing a lot of cool. You have an opportunity to get a bottle of Grayson. There's a lot of cool things going on with that. So I just wanted to say thank you for this. And
man.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Finished whiskey.
Yeah,
It's some
finished
cool
whiskey.
stuff.
Next week, Swiss whiskey.
Swiss? Okay, let's do that.
Swedish, whatever. We'll pick another Norwegian country.
Awesome. Thank you guys
Norwegian.
for
Scandinavian.
It's very Olympics. Thank you guys for checking in. As always, go follow Nico on Instagram at Texas Whiskey Book. I am the Coach Jimmy on Instagram. We would love to hear from you guys. Let us know what you would love to learn about. You have questions, let us know. And as always, cheers, y'all.
Hook 'em.
Boomer.